Okay, finally getting to the designs page after a couple of false starts. As I said, I really like this page, and I'm going to go quite quickly now because I don't want to spend too much time on this for two reasons. First of all, you're going to get overloaded with the information if I just keep on talking and talking and talking. And second of all, I'm using Linux, so you might have noticed, and let me tell you, screencasting on Linux is not the breeze that it should be. Pretty much everything on Linux is a breeze, except for screencasting. If you start getting screencasts that go longer than about 15 minutes, it starts stuttering and dropping frames, and I mean that's assuming you can find software that will actually do a screencast to begin with. So, the design page is really good because A, it gives you lots of demonstrative images, it gives you two high quality thumbnails for each case study, as it were, and B, there's copy to explain the images, which is excellent because when users come to a site, even if you think your images are self-explanatory, they often aren't to the user. For example, a user might come to the site and he'll see this website Scragged, and sure, it seems self-explanatory, maybe he's getting it right, maybe he's understanding it correctly, but he can't be sure, and he likes to know exactly what happened here so that he can know that the problem which was solved in this case study is the same sort of problem that he himself has. It makes him much more comfortable knowing that. And going through and just explaining a little about what happened, about what the problems were that you solved, about the way that you went about it, just gives him a lot of familiarity with you and makes him feel much more comfortable. No calls to action at the bottom though. That's something you should address. Photography. Why isn't this page laid out like the design page? Photographs you would think might be more self-explanatory than designs, but I don't think they are. I think that probably people are going to have the same sorts of questions. Sure, it's a black and white portrait of a toddler of some description. James, apparently his name is. Sure, you can open it up, that's good. You should have been able to do that on the design page as well, really. But what's happening here? Why was this photograph taken? What was the situation in which the photograph was taken? Is it analogous to my situation as someone who wants to have photographs taken? So case studies here would also be excellent. Lots of high quality images is good, but possibly a little bit overwhelming. It might be better to focus on having some larger thumbnails with case studies just as on the design page. Very briefly, the About Us page. Generally good, but two comments. Firstly, this list here. You want lists to be at most 7 items long. That's because basically that's the maximum number of items we can store in our short-term memory. If you have more than 7 items, it starts to look a little bit intimidating, a little bit confusing. I would suggest breaking these up, especially because you've got so many sub-items, like sub-items of sub-items. I'd suggest breaking these up into separate headlines. So have 7 items, then a header, 7 items in a header, 4 items in a header, 2 items in a header, that kind of thing. So break it up so that it's easier to understand. The second thing is this big picture of David here. I presume David is the owner of Ryan Media because his surname's Ryan. I mean, that just kind of makes sense. But it's not the sort of connection people will necessarily make. The fact that he's captioned is good, but the fact that it's his lead designer is not so good, because people are wondering, why is there a picture of the lead designer here? Why not the owner? They're probably not going to make the connection that the owner is the lead designer. What I'd suggest is to actually cut out the head and shoulders, stick it up the top as a hero shot, and caption it as David Ryan, owner of Ryan Media, on Ryan Media's story or something like that. The stance that he's holding here is a little bit defensive, a little bit aggressive, kind of making him look almost like he's daring you to come at him and, hire him. I'd take a less defensive stance if I was going to go with a full screen image, like a full-length image like that. Okay, lastly, the contact page. Contact pages are generally very weak, and in this case, no exception really. The only thing is that it's got some good strengths in the fact that the email address is clickable. There's a phone number, which is excellent because people often like to phone, especially older people who grew up on phones rather than email, and of course, who can ignore the fact that the last 4 digits spell the word lead. And snail mail, which is excellent because not that people want to actually contact you by snail mail, but rather that it lets them know that you exist in a physical location, which reassures them that you're a real agency that has real employees at a real location, a real office. And people like to know that kind of thing. It gives them a lot of confidence in you. It improves your credibility. So it's always good to include. The real problem is, as with most websites, you've got 4 fields, which is fine. I wouldn't necessarily include the subject field because I think that probably that will just give people pause and make them try to think of something when they could have just entered a message. But you've given them these fields and just kind of left them with them. There's really nothing to continue the conversation which has been started in the copy. There's nothing to draw them through and the process of actually talking to you. It feels impersonal. What I would suggest is to include a paragraph at the top of the contact page which reiterates the benefits of getting in touch. Then saying something like, so tell us your name, and how can we get hold of you by email, and what would you like to tell us or talk to us about. Then at the bottom, rather than using the word submit, which is really a kind of a hangover from the fact that in HTML the technical term for the button is submit, use something that's a lot more friendly, a lot less technical. Something like send it now, contact us now, get in touch now. If you're offering some kind of free quote even, you can say something like get your free quote now. That will get a lot better readership and a lot better conversion rates. People will be much more inclined to click that kind of button. Lastly, in terms of call to action buttons, green is a surprisingly weak colour. You see green used a lot, but it's actually not the best colour to use. It doesn't test as poorly as other colours. Sometimes red and blue are a lot worse. Red, especially because it indicates danger, and people don't tend to do things, take actions which indicate danger. Orange is generally the best. It's the second most noticeable colour next to red, but it doesn't have the same connotations. Okay, I'm going to stop there because time is moving on and people are moving around me, and I suspect that they're all going to go somewhere and leave me behind any second, which is most likely going to end badly for me. So, if you have any questions, comments, or hate mail, by all means, get in touch. You can tweet me or you can email me. And if you're wondering what exactly this is, if you're wondering what the Ace of Spades is, it's a free email newsletter which I send out every weekday to my list. It contains straight shooting marketing tips, and you can sign up for it at informationhighwayman.com/aceofspades right there on the screen. So until next time, good converting. Try to keep some of these ideas in mind if you're designing websites, and by all means sign up for my Ace of Spades newsletter. I'll see you on Friday.